Okay, good morning, everyone. The Board of Control for Monday, December 5th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Calling the roll for the Monday, December 5th, 2022 Board of Control meeting. It is 11:01 a.m. We have Councilwoman Nan Baker. Here. Councilman Dale Miller.
Here.
James Boyle serving as alternate for Purnell Jones Jr. Nicole English serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. Here. Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes from November 28th. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is approved. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Let's move on to our first item.
First items, tabled item BC 2022-692, Office of the Medical Examiner submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award of a master contract with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $90,000 for expert testimony relating to autopsy and death investigations for the period October 24, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, and recommending a master contract with said RFP exemption with Dr. Todd Barr in the amount not to exceed $30,000, Dr. Andrea McCullum in the amount not to exceed $30,000, Dr. Erica Armstrong in the amount not to exceed $30,000.
And please state your name when you come up. Thank you.
My name is John Costco. I am an assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor. I have been with the prosecutor's office for 39 years, 26 of those years in the major trial unit homicide, in which I was a trial attorney and now I'm supervisor. I trust that the committee has understands the facts that the three medical examiners, I'll probably call them coroners because that's what we used to call them, left on September 23rd, 2022 for Franklin County. They have left currently right now, there are still 60 open cases in which they were they performed the autopsies on. They already have testified in 6 of our cases since they left. They were not compensated. They did that on their own time. They did that out of a sense of duty and because of the relationship that we have with the coroner's office, they came in voluntarily. But it's unreasonable to expect them to keep doing that, and because that is expensive. They have to prepare for their testimony. They have to come here. They have to usually wait hours in courts, and then they testify. So I'm asking that this motion would be passed, and for these reasons. All right, I don't think I have to elaborate on the fact that a coroner's testimony in a homicide case is critical. And in homicide cases, we want the best presentation of evidence. All right? Somebody could possibly get up, although I've never done it, and I've probably tried over 100 homicide cases myself, and just read the medical examiner's report. But it is not the same thing. We never do this. We never stipulate to the report. We always want the coroner who did the autopsy. You know, on some occasions, there's a fellow who had an internship at the medical examiner's office, and then they left and went to Timbuktu. If he was the autopsy, if he did an autopsy, we would bring him back. It's that important because the person doing the autopsy is the person who makes the Y incision into the body, inserts the trajectory rods, finds the projectile, marks the projectile, reflects the scalp. There are subtleties that only a pathologist who did the autopsy can testify to. A good defense attorney could get up if someone's just reading a report. Well, is that your opinion? No, I just read it, okay, and make a mess out of the whole trial. So it is crucial that we have the best evidence possible in all these cases. Also forcing the current medical examiner's office to prepare for 60-some cases limits, takes them away from what they're doing. As I'm sure you know, there is a homicide is on the rise in Cuyahoga County. There's probably, they don't just do homicides, they do suicides, they do accidents, they do overdoses. So they probably are getting 10 bodies a day, 10 autopsies a day. So for all those reasons, I'm asking that this proposal be passed. We do need this. There are 60 open cases. There won't be 60 trials, all right? And I'm sure that maybe 30, 40% of those will go to trial. But in those cases, we do need this evidence, and it is crucial to us.
Okay, John, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Please, Mr. Boyle.
Well, I'll defer to the council members if they have any questions. So, John, with all due respect, I mean, this is not your contract, it's the medical examiner's contract, correct? So, I mean, Hugh, I get, because I got a lot of questions for the medical examiner side of this. Rather, I mean, it's great that you're here, and I agree with everything you're saying, that we want to put our best foot forward, but this is a medical examiner contract, not the prosecutor's contract.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hugh's here. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so-
Continue.
So this contract is only for criminal, testimony for criminal cases, correct?
Not necessarily. So they do get called occasionally for civil trials.
Civil, with the county being a party, or just regular wrongful death cases? I guess what I'm saying, Hugh, is this. I don't have any problem helping the prosecutor's office put their cases in the best light so that they can present it on behalf of all of us, the residents of Cuyahoga County. Wrongful death cases, that's great. They each have their own individual lawyers. I don't see any reason we'd be paying these folks to do that. Am I missing the boat on this?
So the only difference.
That's all that John talked about. I
Right.
don't know whether there's wrongful death cases in the pipeline.
So any case that our office has made rulings on, we can and are subject to subpoena in both criminal and civil.
Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
If we're subpoenaed, though, whether or not they get paid for it, let's set that issue aside. The person duly subpoenaed has an obligation to appear, correct?
Right.
Every wrongful death case, does Dr. Gilson sign the ultimate, he's the medical examiner, correct?
Right.
These three people work for him, correct?
They did, yes.
Correct. And during the time that all these things were written, they worked for Dr. Gilson, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Gilson can properly be subpoenaed and come in here and testify. He's the one who signed these, correct?
Actually, all doctors now sign their own.
But under his guidance, he is the leader.
Sure.
So in the old days, John, we used to subpoena, and I mean, there's always going to be deputy coroners, deputy medical examiners that move, leave, resign, retire, quit, whatever. I mean, in those situations, we used to have Dr. Balraj come in. Why can't Dr. Gilson come in here and testify?
So I think part of the impetus for this is to relieve the office because we're short-staffed and understaffed.
Let me stop you right
From
there.
doing that.
I've sat in this room for the last 6 months and yelled at, I think she's back there, IT. I've yelled at the other folks about, you need to have, sorry, I know you're always a scapegoat, about having some level of succession planning involved. When did these three deputies leave
September.
of this year? All right, so we've gone through all the way through October, all the way through November. And the answer that you came up with was, let's just pay them more money to bring them back.
That was the solution that was presented, yes.
What was your solution?
At the moment, we don't have one, so I think that's part of the issue. There were a lot of ways that we could have tried to address this. One being, having Franklin County pay them for their time like we do with our doctors. Do you want to have a public fist fight with Franklin County about this?
Well, no.
That's not my call.
No, and it's not. And with all due respect to you and your office, I mean, I'm troubled by the fact that an inability to work out some sort of arrangement between the other 87 counties that are undoubtedly dealing with the same issue is quite troubling to me. Do you know of any other of the 87 counties that are working such an arrangement to pay the now departed deputies?
I haven't looked into it. I haven't heard of one, no.
I did take the liberty, I mean, under the Franklin County, again, I know that they have a different form of government, but at least under their Board of Commissioners, they do pay their employees if they're duly subpoenaed to appear. Do you know whether the coroner's office in Franklin County has a different policy than the Franklin County Commissioners?
What we were told was
I wanna know
that
what you were told. Did you see it? Is it written? What's their policy?
I haven't seen any
Did you
policy.
look for it? Did you talk to them?
So the discussion that we had with the pathologist, they were informing us that Franklin County Coroner was not going to pay for their time off to come back and testify, and that was what precipitated the conflict.
All right, because I'm looking at it, just for record, policy number BOC-49.02. Subpoena to the court with leave with full pay will be granted any employee who's subpoenaed to appear before a court or other legally constituted body authorized by law to compel the attendance of witness. I'm not trying to cause trouble. It sounds to me like we're doing is just coming up with an answer to get them in here, which I support. I'm just troubled that we haven't gone through what appears to be the basic background of this issue. If I can digress, I asked the threshold inquiry of law at the outset, which is whether or not the county has an obligation, not whether we can, not whether we should. And when I sent the email, it's a very pointed question to law, do we have an obligation to pay these amounts? Not can we, but do we have an obligation to pay it?
Greg Huth, the Law Department, Mr. Chairman, to answer the question directly, I could not find anything in the law that says that.
So I'm gonna take that as a no. You can find no obligation to pay this.
Are there additional questions from the board? Councilwoman Baker?
Yeah, and much of it was asked, and I appreciate that, Jim. I think I read here that, as the law director just mentioned, speaking to the question of whether or not this is required, I believe it says that therefore I recommend approving the contract in question in order to provide the Cuyahoga County prosecutor the resources and flexibility necessary to fully exercise his prosecutorial discretion. So we are really just kind of saying, yes, we can to the best of our ability. We don't see a problem, but it could go to the prosecutor's office to make a ruling. Is that what this brief answer is saying?
Mr. Huth?
Okay. You can clarify that.
Mr. Chairman, the councilman, no, what I'm saying is that basically what it said is, it's my recommendation that this contract be approved because I think the prosecutor needs to be able to have these experts if he needs them.
Okay, so nothing farther than that.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I didn't quite read it that way, but I appreciate the clarity.
Please.
So I think there's aspects of this that are complicated and go in both directions. However, I have a close call philosophy that if anything is a close call, you can't have 12 people running the county, and you should support the administration. And that only when something is clearly off track should you be oppositional. And I'm going to apply that principle in this case and vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. Under the scope of services, it says that courtrooms throughout northeast Ohio. We're only doing Cuyahoga County here though, right?
I would have to go back and look. I haven't seen that in a while. So if it's for Northeast Ohio, that would include the other counties that we do autopsy work for. I don't know if that was the original intent or not.
Is that gonna come out of, I know that we do work for other counties. I just don't wanna pay Cuyahoga County tax monies to pay them to testify in a Geauga County case in Geauga County or Lake County. Those aren't our problems. They're all of our problems, but are you aware of this?
I'm aware that there are other prosecutors' offices having similar discussions and similar problems in scheduling their testimony.
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, are you gonna use Cuyahoga County? This contract is $30,000 for each one of these medical examiners. And in the contract, it says that they will be testifying in courtrooms, quote, throughout Northeast Ohio in this, what's the list services. Why are we paying for trials that aren't John Costco's or Mike O'Malley's in other counties?
That provision I did not put in there, so if we need to change it to just Cuyahoga County, I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Huth, is that agreeable? Okay.
And if I can just, and the other piece was, are you okay with it being just strictly criminal cases?
So what I was getting to earlier is that we have the ability under Ohio law to charge for civil cases. We do not have that ability in criminal cases. So if it comes to that point where they're called for civil trial, they can apply Ohio law and charge for their own time. So I don't think that this would have to necessarily apply.
So then, subject to changing it to Cuyahoga County and recognizing that it's only for criminal cases, I agree with Councilman Miller's comments that this is, I mean, look, I have a lot of problems with what happened, both certainly from the legal side, certainly from the medical examiner side, not from the prosecutors. I mean, look, they're putting themselves in the best position, but those inquiries, I mean, I think Councilman Miller's points are well taken, which is it's time to move forward on this, to make sure that the Cuyahoga County residents and Cuyahoga County courtrooms can make sure that these people are properly prosecuted to the best of their.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions?
Just one final comment, if you don't mind. Bill Mason, Chief of Staff for the county. I believe the coroner conducts autopsies for other counties and we get paid for doing that.
Well, that's fine, and I assumed that there was some sort of payback. So what I'm saying is if Cuyahoga County is gonna write a check to Dr. whomever,
Yeah.
that Lake County is gonna recompense us for those fees.
I'm just making it clear.
No,
'cause it
I
didn't
get
sound like
that.
he
No,
answered-
I assume that we've got
answered
an
it that way.
operating agreement with the other counties, and I have no problem with that. The operating agreement that I would assume that Dr. Gilson has worked out is that if we're gonna pay these people, the Lake County or Geauga County or whatever are gonna pay us back.
Mr. Huth?
We have contracts with those counties for fee-for-service.
Perfect.
Just on this point, I only analyze this, or we only analyze this in the context of criminal cases in Cuyahoga County. Okay? So if
Mr.
you're gonna
Huth?
make that change in the contract,
You will make the change? I'll do this as amended? Okay. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve this item as amended. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-706, Department of Development requesting approval of an affordable housing loan in the amount of $450,000 to Glimcher Capital Group, New Village Corporation, or its designee for the Elevation Affordable Housing Project on the former St. Luke's Hospital parking lot located on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in the city of Cleveland to provide 12 newly constructed housing units.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. This will be a forgivable loan based on the developers maintaining the three houses, not maintaining, but being sold as affordable to moderate rate income folks at 120% of the maximum income as approved by HUD. This is $350,000 of administration, general fund due to ARPA, and $100,000 of general fund due to ARPA from Councilwoman Conwell.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Questions from the board? Councilman?
I did, you sure? It may be the same. So the 350 and the 100 are ARPA funds. So that, when that runs out, how do you anticipate being able to continue?
The project has other funding. This is for the first phase, which is 12 for-sale units. And that's the only thing we are participating in currently is the 12 for-sale units, which would get us 3 units that have to be sold to moderate income residents.
So when this money runs out, which it will, you're confident that you can continue?
The developer is confident that they can continue because their intent is to sell or pre-sale the first 12.
Okay.
which would give them the necessary income
To
to do the next 12, yes,
Thank you. That's sometimes a risk when you're counting on the market, but
yes.
I appreciate the answer.
Director, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Jackson. I believe there's too much public subsidy in this project for the amount of public benefit. I'm going to vote for the legislation out of deference to the administration and the council person. But my message is that this package should not be a model going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Any final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. The item is approved.
Thank
Next
you.
item.
Next item is a new item, BC 2022-738, County Council submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a grant award to Milestone Autism Resources in the amount of $100,000 for operational support of the Help Desk Capacity Building Initiative for the period January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Hi, good morning. Levine Ross from County Council. I'm asking for approval for a 2-year grant for the Milestone Autism Resources Help Desk Capacity Building Initiative. This initiative provides online resources, an autism help desk, annual conference and consultation and agency services. Milestone serves individuals from birth to adults by providing critical advice, referrals, and personalized services to those affected by autism. In fact, this is the only organization of its kind in Ohio providing free counseling by licensed professional staff. They collaborate with more than 475 community partners in order to deliver information and specialized services to the autism community. This no-cost help desk and consultation program was designed to empower parents on how to successfully advocate on behalf of their child's needs, to increase access and information for diverse, underserved clientele, support professionals to better intervene in challenging situations, increase self-sufficiency and independence for individuals served with autism. Because the help desk serves as a free of charge, Milestone obtains assistance from the community to cover service delivery cost. This is 100% funded through HHS levy, and I ask for your approval.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board? Please, Councilwoman.
It looks like a good initiative, and I'm sure that those that are dealing with this could always use the help. I'm just curious as to, let's see, the dates here, 1/1/2022. We are in now December of 2022, so we're only left with 1 year. Has this been going on for all of last year?
It has been, we have provided them funding since 2018.
Since 2018, and without this funding, how did they fund last year?
So we've been doing it for 2 years, so they've been, since 2018, we've been funding them the $50,000 each year through HHS levy. So they are due $50,000 for this year and then $50,000 for next year.
So would this be a retro pay?
We're still in 2022, so I could still get the $50,000 out to them, and then we'll do next year the next $50,000.
I guess not to be redundant, but 12 months has passed in 2022. Have they been receiving any funds at all up until now?
They do have additional funding from community resources, so they have additional, I think the total, grab the budget.
Well, the 50,000 that we are approving today for this year, will that be pay that we have to give them for their work in 2022 that they have not yet received?
Correct, correct. And the total amount is $272,193. So they get funding from other sources, the Cleveland Foundation, Mount Sinai Healthcare. So they get several grants from the community.
Is there a reason why this wasn't presented in 2021 for approval for all of 2022?
You know, we usually present it around this time, so I guess they usually provide services, and during this time, we usually pay out to the service.
Okay, did the contract end 2021 for
So
this service, for the HHS levy?
there's really no specific contract. This is more of just like a grant award to them. And so that grant award is for 2020 and then 2023.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Boyle, do you have, no? Any additional questions? I just have a comment. If you're going to get it for this year, make sure you get the paperwork ready.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-739, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to a contract with Jones Stuckey Limited, a division of Pannoni Associates Incorporated, for design engineering services for improvement of Cedar Point Road Bridge number 00.49 over the Rocky River in the city of North Olmsted, to expand the scope of service as authorized on a task order basis and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $50,000 effective upon signatures of all parties.
Nicole English with Public Works. As Councilwoman Baker probably knows, this is a bridge that we have had closed for a little while.
Yep.
It was one that they, when construction began, it's a historic bridge in the Metro Park. So we had initially planned to save the beams as part of the historic nature of the bridge. When they got in there, the useful life of them was just not going to cut it. We were going to spend millions of dollars to get maybe 20 years out of it instead of a 50-year lifespan. So we had to go back to the drawing board. And so this is our design consultant that is assisting us with a plan moving forward in order to come up with a new solution replacing the beams. So this is some additional funds we need to put into their contract to assist us to get there. The quicker we get them with the design fixed, the quicker we can get the contractor to bid a new solution and try to get this bridge moving and open. I know it's been a real headache for the communities, so that's the background on this. So this is an extra $50,000 to be used so we don't hit any headaches as we go forward, so that we have some money in their contract to use them.
Okay, and yes, I am very well aware of it and have had my share of questions. And I believe the last correspondence we had on it was it would be completed by spring of next year. Is that, no?
No, so it's looking like now, I mean, it's probably gonna be closed through summer of next year.
Oh,
That's our
wow.
hope to
Really?
be, I know.
And if I remember, if my memory serves me, this was not anticipated. And we were looking at other bridges that we thought could also have a same weakened state.
So that was Memphis with the beams that were covered with the gunite.
Okay, that was Memphis.
Yeah, this is different in the sense, as we move forward now in repairing historic bridges like Hilliard,
Yeah.
now we've made the decision to replace. The rehab option on these, while it's good in salvaging the historic nature of the bridges, we're just not getting the life out of them after. And so we're working with, this had federal money in it, so you have to work through the environmental process, and there's consulting parties and people who really want to see that historic bridge stay.
Yeah.
And we're looking closer at balancing, saying if we cannot get another 50 years out of it, we can't be investing millions of dollars into it. And so making different decisions moving forward. So this is different from the Memphis situation that you're recalling, but it was another unfortunate, they opened it. We could patch the beams, you could have done it, it just wasn't going to get us a lot of life once they saw what was there.
If I may, have the mayors of the city of North Olmsted and Rocky River, and do they know that this is going to be a prolonged?
Yeah, so we actually had a call last week with a couple members of the mayor's staff from North Olmsted, and we did inform them. I mean, they're none too happy. They've been getting calls, and the Metro Parks also gets calls all the time, and they are calling us. So we're trying to do this as quickly as we can. But again, it's kind of like going back to the drawing board to come up with a new design to change the beams
And
out.
if these are only for services for consultants, I would anticipate you're going to ask for more money.
In the change order for the contractor, once we know what they need to do. So we have to get through this piece first, then when we decide what to do, the contractor will give us a new price, and we'll be coming forward with an amendment for them.
Okay, well, good luck with that.
Thank you. I mean, the good news is the detour, the marked detour is a little bit longer. There is other local roads that we cannot mark as detours that I think the locals have figured out that aren't super long.
Yeah.
So I think people are getting around. It's just more of an inconvenience, and that's the route you know, are used to taking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-740, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Feldman Ford LLC and the amount not to exceed $375,039 for the purchase of 6 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning AWD Super Cab, 5.5 feet, box 145 inches, WB Pro for the Fleet Division, and recommending a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Pavich, Public Works. This is requesting approval of a purchase order with Feldman. It's for the purchase of 6 Ford F-150 Lightnings. Those are the all-electric pickup trucks. They'll be used by our sanitary division, our facilities, and one of them will go to the sheriff's division. This is the not-to-exceed purchase order. This was bid out competitively twice. We're making award off the second proposal that we had come in. It went to 15 vendors. We had one bid submission. This is that award.
Thank you, Tom. Questions from the board? Councilman?
How many electric vehicles does the county now have in its fleet?
All electric, I believe 0. This will be the
They're
first.
the first.
Wow,
Yes.
it's a
So-
big deal. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been
Yes.
working towards that for the last couple years, and it's been really difficult to get electric vehicles. Tom's tried several times. We've had
Yes.
canceled orders. So we think, fingers crossed, this will be our first.
Yes,
set.
these will be 23 models, so they'll be delivered next year.
Excellent.
Great.
That's fantastic. But you guys, wait, so can you not get electric vehicles on the state contracting? Because you had to do a bid process for this.
We did a bid process for this. As you know, anything in the vehicle industry is just completely distorted right now. You know, I think 2 weeks ago, we came back with, state of Ohio canceled all police vehicles for the rest of the year. So, it's pretty distorted. We bid this last year. We had one bid proposal, but it was high and it was for a 22 model. We bid this, excuse me, it's for a 23 model. The vendor knows the price. We're locked in there to get those on that list. So
We bid, why is it an RFP exemption?
So this is an RFP exemption because the vendor didn't turn in all their documents. So our normal RFB, and Jared, you can comment if you want, has, I think, 13 to 15 pages. The vendor did not turn in like the cover page. The vendor turned in all the documents where they had to take action. But I think they tried to save paper and not print the non-pertinent documents. So technicality, we had to submit this as an exemption and not as an award document. And I could show you after the meeting what documents they didn't submit. I have them with me.
I just wanted the record to reflect that it's a bit, we get beat up for a lot of these RFP exemptions, just so.
The next
Sure,
item on the agenda, the exact same thing. The vendor didn't submit a cover sheet, the public notice, and another document as well. So,
Thank
but
you,
they
Tom.
did submit all the required documents pertinent to the actual bid award.
And by the way, most are deserved. Are there questions from the board?
I was like, what?
I always,
Under the bus? No one's even gonna ask that question. I do have a question. I'm
Trevor
sorry,
likes
Dan, if
to
you-
know
Where are you
about
guys gonna
these
charge? Do you have a
exemptions.
do we have a charging
So-
station there?
So you can comment.
They're putting
The
in
whole
lines. So these are fairly easy to put in our own facilities because it's just running a line.
Yes.
We're gonna just plug them in.
Yep.
The charging stations that we're working to put in are for the public because a public car then plugs in and you charge them for the charge. So these are going to be able to be put in by our trades.
Okay.
And it's really just running, we have the ability to get it there, just
Yep.
running the line to where they're gonna park.
Okay.
It's the public charging stations we're still working on. And that's, NOACA released a bid. We're getting several through NOACA. They had to rebid. There was some Buy America issues with their bid. And they opened last week, the new bid. So we're,
These will be stationed, I
Probably-
guess, at Harvard.
So
Mostly.
these county ones, we'll have, I think, Ford, Harvard, one at 1642 for the trades and the sheriffs. And I actually talked to Matt Reimer this morning just to make sure it's on his radar, because it'll be a little while before we take delivery of these, but just to make sure it's on the radar to get these stations installed before we take receiving of the vehicle.
yeah, it's exciting.
I always wonder when you turn in documents and it doesn't look like they're pertinent. if you should include them, so I guess that's a, thank you for that answer. I guess it does matter.
We have a process for that. We're going
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
I try to save paper, so,
Yeah.
but it's a process.
I wonder, what is the life of these vehicles?
I will get back to you. I will look that up. I'm not 100% sure. So I think the batteries are a 10-year lifespan, I believe. I'm not sure if Ford has
7 to 10
released.
maybe.
7 to 10 maybe, and I'm not sure the disposal process for those batteries, because the whole underside is a battery.
Right, that's my question, yeah.
I'll try to dig up some information and send it to you.
So if it's a 7 to 10 life of the battery, do you anticipate replacing the battery and keeping the vehicle?
Yeah, I
It's a
guess
little-
that's gonna be driven by the condition of the vehicle. We try to keep our vehicles as long as possible. The next item on the agenda are 2 new Pacificas. We're replacing minivans, which Children and Family Services, they're gonna get passed down to our trade, so.
Right.
We have a whole process to pass down, so the assumption is we'd like to pass them down, but obviously it's gonna depend on the condition of those.
You think this is gonna be a trial, right, to try to see what kind of life we're getting out of them, and,
Yes.
and
Right.
things are gonna evolve as we go, but.
Well, as the life, I guess the issue you always hear about is that the life of the battery is really what drives the vehicle.
Yep.
Correct.
So if the life of the battery is only 7 to 10 years,
Correct.
and the battery itself, I heard, can run maybe 20,000 or more.
Right.
I just wonder if that was part of your thought process when you think about how long we like to keep these vehicles and how we pass them down.
Yeah, it'll all be factored in, and I think the whole electric industry is gonna evolve. California took the precedent several months ago where all new vehicles sold after 2035 must be electric, no more gasoline. So, that's only 12 years from now. So, there's a big push on manufacturers to tidy up any loose ends with these vehicles. More manufacturers should start making these types of vehicles. So, it'll evolve, and hopefully they'll be able to go beyond the 7 to 10 years with these
And I
batteries
think
in
our
the
fleet
future.
manager will keep that in mind as he's deploying these vehicles and who's using them and making sure we
Right.
get the most bang for our buck in that,
Correct.
the first so many years in case that's not gonna be feasible to replace the battery.
And do we know now how we dispose of those batteries, or is that still also in question?
I think it's still in question.
Sure
I
about
believe it is still in question.
Okay, those are kind of
Yeah,
things to,
They are,
you know,
so, yeah.
consider.
that's gonna
when-
be new for
Yeah.
our fleet.
It's a problem shared by everybody that has an electric vehicle now, so I'm assuming that the dealerships or somebody will have that worked out.
Okay, well, good, thank you.
Mr. Boyle?
At Harvard, we have the solar panels.
Yes.
Is that gonna be, as we move forward on renewable energy sources, is that what we're gonna try to charge these vehicles and others from that solar?
So the solar array is powering part of that building, so yes, in general, it goes into the power of that building. And these will come off of the power grid from the building.
I know I'm saying a question that Councilman Miller will already have thought about, but presumably we will be tracking our fuel consumption.
Yes.
We'll be taking 6 out of the fleet, not a whole lot, but it's a start.
It's a start, yep.
Yeah, to start. I think we're at 460 vehicles in our fleet across the county, so it's a little, it's
Long
a
way to go.
start, it's a
Long
start.
Now you made it sound less, but
it's a
it's still a start. And I think as they become available, that's what we were running into a problem with.
Right.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2022-741, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption which will result in award recommendation to Cuff-Leitner Automotive Incorporated, DBA Cuff-Leitner Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, in the amount not to exceed $80,618 for the purchase of 2 Chrysler Pacifica touring vehicles and recommending a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, again, Public Works, requesting approval of purchase order with Cuff-Leitner. It's for 2 Chrysler Pacificas. They will replace 2 minivans that are currently used by Child and Family Services. As I mentioned before, will be passed down to our trades. This was also bid out twice. The second time, we had 1 bid received. We went to 11 vendors. It was evaluated, and this is the award to that. And as I mentioned earlier, this vendor also did not submit all their documents. This vendor missed only 3 pages. They were missing the cover sheet, 1 of the spec pages, and the public notice. So that's why it's an exemption.
Thank you, Tom. Questions from the board? Please.
What is a touring vehicle?
It's just one of the models. It's,
Is what they call it.
that's what they call it. That's correct. Yeah, I think that's Chrysler's new minivan model.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is
Thank you.
approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-742, Department of Development submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a grant award with Burton Bell Car Development Incorporated and the amount not to exceed $250,000 for operating support to help promote ongoing initiatives in the central neighborhood, effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 1 year, and recommending a grant agreement with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Paul Hertig with the Department of Development, and here with me today is Joy Johnson, Executive Director of Burton Bell Car Development. This item is from the county executive discretionary amount of general fund made available due to ARPA. And it is important to the executive that we continue to support for the executive's central surge process. This is work that the administration's been doing for about 2 years now. Intended to focus on supporting the residents and small businesses in the central neighborhood of Cleveland. What's important about this particular piece of funding is that this is not something the administration decided to do. This is something the administration engaged with leadership of the central neighborhood and asked what is needed, what is most needed. So Joy will be here to answer any further detailed questions, but I want to say essentially what we've determined over a series of meetings. The Chief of Staff, Bill Mason, participated in these meetings every 2 weeks. We had leadership of Health and Human Services participating, Dr. Harris when he was here, and then Sabrina Roberts after that, myself on many occasions, Vaughn Johnson from the Department of Development, really spending time listening and hearing from leaders of the central neighborhood what's needed. And what's emerged is residents in the central neighborhood need help in connecting with available services and programs that we may take for granted. We have the Ohio Means Jobs Office, 1910 Carnegie, people could just walk in. You know, we have this program, that program. What we've learned is it can be very difficult and challenging for residents living in the central neighborhood to access these programs, and support is needed. So this $250,000 of funding over a 1 year period, some will be used for staffing at Burton Bell Car, some will be actually passed through Burton Bell Car to partner organizations in the neighborhood. But the goal of all of this is to increase resident engagement and access to services. I'm going to pause here for any questions people have for me, or then Joy is here if there's any questions specifically for her.
Thank you both. Are there questions from the board? Please, Councilwoman.
So that, as it's stated, these are for ongoing initiatives. So this is something that is already in place.
Yes, Councilwoman. The Department of Development did provide some operating support to Burton Bell Car about a year ago, and Burton Bell Car does have other sources of funding as a community development corporation. But yes, these are, it's intensifying and being able to step up a little work that's already being done.
And as with the other proposals today, these are ARPA funds, which are limited funds. So how will you, what is the anticipated way of funding? And these are for operating costs.
So thank you again, Councilman. It is true this is one-time funding. To some extent, because we have a new administration coming in, that's a question for the new administration. But I will say again, there are numbers of types of funding available for Community Development Corporation, having directed one myself. And Joy, you know, part of the executive director's job is fundraising, and there are various other sources of social service funding and grants that may be available to continue the work.
All right, so you're confident that this will continue beyond this $100,000 grant that we're giving for this year or for next year?
We are, and I see that Joy, if Joy may say.
Sure.
I just wanted to add that the work of this effort is really to build the capacity of the neighborhood and of the residents. So ideally, we work to put ourselves out of business, so to speak. And I say that in a practical sense, that we hope that the need shrinks. We're investing more, hopefully to sort of remove those barriers from residents to receiving services from the county. So hopefully there aren't new barriers that come up, that we're able to eliminate some of these barriers, and the need for this strength and connection won't be as great.
Okay, well, that's a great answer. I mean, I hope that if you are successful, that means that you've reached out to those and they understand how it works and you don't have to have a kind of a connector
Correct.
to, okay, thank you for that.
One other thing I'll add is that our hope is that this could be a pilot for other neighborhoods and other communities across the county. So our residents are happy and eager to share what they've learned with others.
Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions from the board? Seeing none, then I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2022-743, Department of Development submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a grant award with Friends of Middleton Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $500,000 in support of the restoration and revitalization of Park Synagogue buildings and surrounding land located in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, effective upon signature of all parties for a period of 3 years, and recommending a grant agreement with said RFP exemption.
Paul Herdig, Department of Development, and with me is Naomi Sable, one of the developers, been working on this project. This is also an allocation of part of the county executive's discretionary general fund made available due to receipt of ARPA. This particular project is restoration of the former Park Synagogue. The congregation has moved, the building remains, and I hope I don't get in trouble, Naomi, because she lives and eats and breathes this project. But my understanding is the building has been designated a World Historic Resource. Naomi's going to correct me in a moment, but it has great historical significance. You know, the design, fantastic. Its history in Cleveland, and there's a desire to preserve this building for future use that benefits the public. We have been working with the project for some time. We've assisted the project in obtaining state brownfield cleanup funds, and the project is in fact one of the 18 that's recommended for some additional brownfield funding to be hopefully approved by council tomorrow night. But even with that, a need remained. So in working with the project and reviewing the extent of the need, we determined an additional $500,000 of this funding was appropriate. It will basically put the buildings in conditions they're ready for productive reuse.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Are there questions from the board? Let's start. Mr. Boyle, please.
I don't, where did, the last item came through, I mean, obviously, we all know Burton Bell Car Development, they're a CDC. What is Friends of Mendelssohn? What is its corporate structure?
Naomi, can you,
Sure.
Councilman, if I may allow Naomi to give the details?
Hi.
Please.
Friends of Mendelssohn is a nonprofit 501c3.
And you're a board member? Who is,
Yes.
I mean, who runs it?
Well, I'm a board member. There's 5 other board members, various, both congregants and people dedicated towards restoration in the community.
And what are,
It's a specific purpose nonprofit for the restoration of this particular building.
and is it, I've been there numerous times as a proud resident of Cleveland Heights. I grew up in the neighborhood, so I know that it's beautiful.
Sure.
Is the desire to save the, not the school area, but the synagogue area?
The entirety of the Mendelssohn structure.
And we're, obviously, $500,000 is not going to save the.
No.
What is the total project cost?
We're in the process of applying for the state federal tax credit round in March. It's going to be a multi-phased project, both because there's 28 acres. It'll be both the restoration phase of the synagogue and school, and then there'll ultimately be a redevelopment phase of that 28 acres, intergenerational housing, a public park, sort of making it a true community asset open to all of Cleveland Heights and Cuyahoga County.
Hopefully they will be, are the school buses still done on that?
No, they're gone.
Oh, thank God.
And
Okay.
just a clarification, so our goal right now is to, the building is designated as a local Cleveland Heights landmark, and that's really it, which is sort of a surprisingly precarious restoration, status. We're looking to put it on the national registry, and then ultimately it will become Cuyahoga County's 5th national landmark if we're successful in that application. And then in reference to the UNESCO, the governments of Germany, Israel, and the Getty Foundation have partnered to create a UNESCO World Heritage Site designation for several Eric Mendelssohn buildings. And because Park is the most significant religious building that he created. Park will be part of that application, but that's years into the future.
And what is, I mean, what is the ultimate price tag of the project? Do you have any idea?
I am imagining that phase one is in the $20 million range.
Additional questions? Councilwoman, please.
Just curious, Paul, is there a reason why this wasn't presented like the other ARPA projects that go through 3 readings?
Councilwoman, simply because of the amount. It's been our practice to bring things up to $500,000 here to the Board of Control.
We've had other projects, though, much less than 500,000 that went through 3 readings from ARPA funding. Is it just because it's the executives?
I would say, Councilwoman, it's just been our practice in the Department of Development to do it that way.
Okay.
That's just consistent with how we usually bring our projects.
I think it was the council-sponsored items, right? You took all those to council.
Right.
But I do think the councilwoman's quite, I mean, so for example, there've been, I mean, the Bale project, for example, I think started as a executive. But no, I don't know the answer, Councilwoman, but it's a good
I
question.
mean, the limits are 500 and below here, but the option, you can always take it to council, and I was wondering if that's what you guys chose to do.
Right, I think for projects that we put forward, we wanted to make sure went to committee, had 3 readings, and then finally back for a final, so everybody understands. And for 500,000, that's pretty considerable. And I understand your position with it being Department of Development, but it is ARPA funding. I thought maybe it was because it was an executive initiative that's coming out of his pot of money.
Again, Councilwoman, to us, it's simply the practice of the Department of Development. We consistently bring everything up to $500,000 to this board.
Okay. All right.
And I'm almost positive we brought other items to BOC.
For ARPA dollars?
Yeah.
I think the one that Sarah Park Jackson brought forward, I think initially was ARPA, I think, wasn't it, at least partially?
It is, thank you, Jim, it is. It is the
Yeah.
same,
Same.
except that there's 100,000 of Councilwoman Conwell's in there.
Right.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next
Thank you
item.
all.
Next item, BC 2022-744, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to MNJ Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $16,374 for a state contract purchase of 3 HP ZBook G9 mobile workstations, each to include HP Care Pack hardware support, 5-year extended warranty, HP Absolute Data and Data Security for educational professional, subscription licenses and docking stations for the Department of Public Works, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. Yes, morning still. Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is a purchase on behalf of the Public Works Department to procure 3 laptop workstations for members of engineers. These are
Complicated ones.
yes, so these are super expensive for 3. I just want to make sure we acknowledge that. These are i9s, which are higher powered processors, plus the memory is 1 terabyte. SSD, basically it's a more memory than what our normal laptops require.
So Nicole English with Public Works, just real quick. These are for our high-level AutoCAD users in our department. So in order to run the software to its full capacity, especially from a remote location, we did quite a bit of research with IT and determined what kind of laptop we need. So we, again, assign these to what we call the super users. We have sort of a step down that was here a few weeks ago for more of the daily AutoCAD users, but these are a couple super users that need this machine.
Right, a lot of times they need higher power CPUs to do graphics and stuff like that. So that's the higher price tag on this item.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
Just one, this is completely outside the ERP.
Yeah, this is just regular operating laptops. They need to do their design.
Okay.
Final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2022-745, Department of Information Technology on behalf of Juvenile Court submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to MNJ Technologies Direct Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $8,922 for a state contract purchase of 6 Surface Pro tablets and accessories to include keyboards and stylus pens for each unit, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. Again, these are 6 Surface Pros, which are a part of our IT standards that will be purchased on behalf of the Juvenile Court. These will be replacement machines.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Councilman?
What's the turnaround time on delivery on this?
We go to M&J because they have them in stock. So usually when we procure those, they can turn them around sometimes inside of a week. So we work with this vendor pretty exclusively. They can turn around things pretty quick. We've gotten stuff overnighted before, so they're pretty quick.
Supply chain problem is not universal.
Well, yeah, it all depends on the manufacturer, depends on what it is. We, for the longest time, had a problem getting in HP docking stations that we were on hold for almost a year for. This particular vendor did get some in. I think they numbered in the about 10,000 of them. So, we've been ordering those docking stations because we haven't been able to fulfill orders before for other departments when we order them.
So for
depends
the
on what
item,
it is.
the item before, should I tell them they'll have them this week? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll verify that for you and let you know. Hopefully so, but then they also have to come in and get imaged and all the other stuff. So there's a little bit of inside work that we have to do for those.
Move approval while getting's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item's approved.
Next item, BC 2022-746, Department of Information Technology submitting an amendment to a contract with TEC Communications Incorporated for network professional services, licensing, and technical support services for various customer service hotlines for the Fiscal Department and Department of Health and Human Services cloud call centers for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2023 for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $158,000 effective upon signatures of all parties.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This particular segment of this contract is being procured on behalf of the Fiscal Department. This is to fund their cloud call centers that, powers their call centers when taxpayers or constituents call in for services. So that is the portion of this contract that we are funding. There's a separate line item for HHS that is separately funded from HHS levy funds.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Mr. Boyle, please.
I've seen tech communications a lot, and this is listed as a Fifth Amendment. Yet then on the third paragraph, it says project is a new, no, it's not new to the.
Correct.
So, okay, we're on the Fifth Amendment with this company. I mean, what's the plan? I mean, are we locked in? Is it is it proprietary?
So this contract was originally procured in 2018 as a part of an RFP. The original segment of this, and this is going by my memory, was for professional services for IT. So that was centered in WAN and our phone systems support. We brought forth an amendment for this. There was one for some security needs that we needed to have in 2020. And then we did another amendment for this to bring forth the HHS cloud call centers because they had, during the pandemic, they had several members that were working remotely. And this would allow them, the management in HHS to be able to facilitate and manage the calls that came in. So in 2021, the fiscal department came in to this in order to be able to manage their call centers as well. Okay. But what happens with this, this is for funding purposes. So the scope of services is not changing. This is just to make sure we can fund the call centers.
Yeah, and I get that. The issue that I think is at least out there is when you do an initial RFP and somebody wins it, and then it starts branching off into other contracts without having an open process. And to that extent, I get it, it's all call center related. That's great, but perhaps this was something at the outset that we could have had a more expansive RFP. But-
Well, and yes, definitely, but at the time, it was, when we started going to the cloud call center, it wasn't something we anticipated, it was something that the pandemic necessitated, so that's what we reacted to, and so, figuring that the HHS portion performed well, this we could then carry over to the fiscal call centers,
No, I
and I think
get
it made sense for us to do it
I
that
agree,
way.
it does make sense.
What you're saying is next time you think it should be bid, correct?
Well, that's
I
kind of
agree.
where I was going, but I get this fact that, I mean, as Janelle so appropriately stated, I mean, there was this minor global pandemic in
For a
the
couple
outset
years.
since we first bid it out, that perhaps
Right.
changed things, but moving forward, yes, I would.
Oh, absolutely, I would definitely say that we could, bid those out, but we would just, responding to a need.
Absolutely. No, you were. I agree. Okay. Any additional questions on the item? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Dale.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next, item BC 2022-747, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommend an award on RQ 11144 and enter into a sole source contract with Hitachi High-Tech America Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $16,104 for preventative maintenance services on the Hitachi S3400N2 PCVP scanning electron microscope for the period September 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2023.
Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. Good afternoon. This is a maintenance contract for the scanning electron microscope in the Trace Evidence Department.
Okay, Hugh, thank you. Questions from the board? Please.
So the contract started September 1st, 2022, so are there funds yet that we owe? Has there been maintenance needed?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. If there had been, would they have waited, do you think, to be paid?
I imagine so. I think you'll recall, we had a bit of a funding issue. We were waiting for other legislation that had
Right.
to go through council before we could move on this and the next contract as well.
Okay, but none yet that you have to pay?
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
Any final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next, item BC 2022-748, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommend an award on RQ 11090 and enter into a sole source contract with Life Technologies Corporation in the amount not to exceed $55,440 for maintenance services on two 3500 genetic analyzers for the period October 17, 2022 through October 16, 2025.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. Again, this is for the DNA lab maintenance agreements on the analyzers.
Questions, please.
I may again, no, nothing's been paid to this company, no need.
Not to this point, no.
Sure. Any final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next, item BC 2022-749, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Wingspan Care Group and the amount not to exceed $10,000 for evidence-based trauma-informed treatment services for child victims and witnesses of violence in connection with the Defending Childhood Initiative project for the period October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023, and recommended contract with said RFP exemption.
Good afternoon, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. And as Sharon has mentioned, this is for therapy services for children who will participate in our Defending Childhood program. This is for victims and witnesses of violence. The reason for the RFP exemption is this is a grant-funded project, and this partner was specifically named in our VOCA application. It's the same level of funding as last year. Because it is grant-funded, any services that have been rendered going back to October 1st will be reimbursed by Ohio, so that's there. Then also, when I presented this similar contract on Frontline a couple weeks ago, Councilman Miller, you had asked how many clients actually were paid by Medicare, or Medicaid, I'm sorry. In this particular contract, there were 6 children who were referred. 2 ended up being paid by Medicaid, 1 was private insurance, and 3 had therapy paid for by this VOCA contract.
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-750, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, recommending an award and enter into a contract with Spec Rescue International Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $14,725 for advanced shoring instruction training course for the Ohio Homeland Region 2 Urban Search and Rescue Team, effective upon contract signature of all parties through December 16, 2022.
Thank you. This course will actually provide hands-on and classroom training on shoring structures in the event of a building or a bridge collapse. It is grant-funded, and both Ohio EMA and the project owner have approved the award. We did issue an informal bid, and we are making a recommendation to the lowest cost vendor, and it will train up to 20 USAR members.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Questions from the board? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-751, Sheriff's Department recommend an award on RQ 11290 and enter into a sole source contract with Relias LLC and the amount not to exceed $157,320 for law enforcement standard subscription package, including training, tracking, and reporting software services, effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 3 years.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. We're requesting approval for this contract with Relias. Like Cheryl said, this is for training for our correctional officers and maybe law enforcement, reporting software services, and it allows the administrators to go ahead and track all this training.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Questions from the board?
Specific training.
It's a little bit of everything. I'm sorry, Associate Warden Shimo. It allows us to provide, we have currently 6 classes that are mandatory for corrections officers with suicide prevention, PREA. Relias has a repository of training that expands that, and it allows us to offer more training for our staff on every level.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-752, Sheriff's Department submitting an amendment to a contract with Montrose Ford to change the terms effective as of the last date of signature of the parties and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $46,241.79 for a state contract purchase for 5 replacement new never titled 2023 Ford Explorers.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. We're requesting approval. We came in front of the board back in August for 5 Explorers. And like Public Works, that was mentioned a couple weeks ago, they stopped production, so now we had to go get the 23 models. The price did increase for 5 replacement. It's going to cost an additional $46,000 for us.
I just have a question. Why, in the last year or so, the sheriff's been buying a lot of their own vehicles? I
They
know that you're
always
doing
have,
it in
as much-
conjunction, but it seems like a lot more, no?
Our understanding is we split them. I think we put some on our capital plan and then you guys buy the remainder of what you need.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't realize that too, but we did ask the question recently.
It's just coming out of general fund, either way. Just wondering. Okay.
I'm not sure if it's just capacity to purchase them or I don't know why it's been done that way.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from the board?
Is the sheriff's office considering buying any electric vehicles as was done with Public Works?
There you go.
But I mean, I would have to defer to our buyers, but I know there was a truck out there that was brought to our attention for down the road. That would look pretty nice.
Yeah. So Lieutenant Coles with the Sheriff's Office. I have worked with Matt Crowder. One of the 6 vehicles you guys just voted on will be coming to the Sheriff's Department as a trial and error vehicle through that phase. So.
Okay, well, the planet needs all the help it can get, so I would encourage it. Thank you.
If I may.
Please.
Only on that, I would just caution that we make sure we have some of those answers, though, before we start really moving forward more seriously. The battery, how long they last, whether or not, it's even worth keeping the vehicle if the battery is too expensive, and then how we dispose of it. I don't think those are light questions that we can wait till later and figure it out. Before we move too much forward, I think those are questions everyone would like to know before we invest too much more in electric vehicles.
I'll make note of that for our buyers too when we start researching.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-753, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting amendment to a contract with the Bridge Foundation for Fiscal Agent and Management Services for the Identification Documentation Crisis Collaborative Program for the period September 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to August 31st, 2023, to change the terms effective September 1st, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $170,000.
Erin Reardon, Office of Homeless Services. This is an amendment, as stated, to our contract with Bridge Foundation as fiscal agent for the ID Crisis Collaborative, which provides assistance for people in getting birth certificates and identification that they may not ordinarily be able to get and that they need to basically access any service in our county. This is late. While this is not a new service, this is a relatively new provider, and they needed some additional time to work on their budget. And then we had to work with risk management to get some of their insurance needs taken care of.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Questions from the board?
Just a comment that this is very basic legislation that provides services that people need so that they can access a wide variety of other services, and this is a program that originated out of the council, and we appreciate the administration's continuing support. Thank you.
Final questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Nicole English. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-754, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Community of Hope for trauma-informed team mentoring services for transition-age young adults who have and/or are going out of the foster care system in Cuyahoga County for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2023, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $150,000.
Good morning, afternoon. Marcos Cortez on behalf of Children and Family Services. Again, this is a contract amendment with Community of Hope for the Team Mentoring Program. This program is directed to 18 to 24-year-olds who have been impacted or aged out of our foster care system. So we have teams of 6 to 8 community volunteers that work with the youth to help them set and organize their goals. The teams meet weekly to offer guidance and encouragement to the youth. We're planning on issuing an RFP in later in 2023. We're asking for this amendment because there is a new program person who was assigned to this program from DCFS, and she asked that we extend the time so she can get a better grasp if there's any changes needed for the future RFP.
Thank you, Marcos. Questions from the board? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, it's an exemption, BC 2022-755, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services, requesting to amend Board Approval Number BC 2021-166, dated April 5th, 2021, which authorized an alternative procurement process resulting in payments to various municipalities in Cuyahoga County for reimbursement of eligible backfill and overtime expenses in connection with the Rescue Task Force Training Project for the period April 5th, 2021 through June 30th, 2023, to change the time period to April 5th, 2021 through December 31st, 2022, to clarify the inclusion of straight time effective April 5th, 2021, and to change the not-to-exceed amount from $50,000 to $60,000.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety, and also with me is Mark Christie, the Emergency Management Manager. Rescue Task Force is modeled after tactics used by field medics working in military combat zones. RTF, as it's known, involves EMS personnel who deliver triage to victims in a warm zone of an active shooter or a mass casualty event while under the protection of law enforcement. The Board of Control had previously approved an alternate procurement that allows us to reimburse communities who provide RTF trainers. The alternate procurement allowed us to reimburse after the class had occurred when actual costs were known, and allowed us to also process those via purchase orders. The situation that we ran into was that we had $50,000 allocated over the period of the project. And last year we spent about $25,000, so we assumed $25,000 would cover this year. Unfortunately, what we didn't realize was that 2 of the trainers had actually gotten promoted to sergeants, which meant that their rates increased substantially. And in addition, there was a greater need for backfill at a sergeant level than there was at their old patrol level positions. Also, the communities had some more manpower issues this year that required that we pay more backfill. So the reason that that's why we're asking to increase it by the $10,000. The inclusion on the straight time is that I went back to my notes from when I originally presented back in 2021. Everything we submitted, everything that I said, all included straight time, but for some reason I didn't notice that it didn't get put in the motion. So that's just clarifying that. And then the reason why we're actually cutting the period short is that we have reached what we planned to spend on the project, and we've actually exceeded our goals we had anticipated. We would train 120 new RTF instructors. We've in fact done 211 instructors in 43 municipalities, 6 colleges and universities, somebody from RTA, somebody from the Metro Parks, or folks from the Metro Parks, and also one of the sheriff's deputies. So we will be taking the rest of the year and early next year to evaluate what our next steps are with this project.
Very good. Thank you, Mary Beth. Questions from the board? Yes, please.
I understand, and it's wonderful work, how many you have trained outside of what you thought you would, but there's always new people coming up. Is that, do you expect those that are there to train the new people that are there? Is that how that works?
Yes, this is a train the trainer program. The one area was we do know that there are some communities that have not participated yet. I believe there's 16 communities that we still need to get involved. But as far as with new people within an individual department, yes, it was a train the trainer model.
That you just mentioned, how will they be able to train if they haven't participated so far?
I think that's one of the things that we will be looking at moving forward, but I'm going to defer to Mark on that one.
Yeah, that's correct. We, at this point in the process, what we're coming to realize is that there's probably going to be a continuing need for this type of program into the future. That's going to be based off of, as you mentioned, people coming and going in different departments, but then also changes in some of the instruction and tactics that are being taught through lessons learned and other events. So that's one thing that we're going to speak internally on, the future offering of something like this to address that piece, as well as the evolution in the instruction.
So for now, you're just taking a break, reassessing, and we probably will be back.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to consent agenda.
Consent items BC 2022-756 and BC 22-757.
Well, board members, it's pretty short, so do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve today's consent agenda items as listed. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Moving on to other business.
No other business?
Any public comment?
No public comment?
I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.